All right, Nicolas, welcome. Thank you for jumping on.
Good morning.
Look, if you can just sort of introduce the viewers to obviously who you are and I guess a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, of course. My name is Nicolas Steiger. I'm a co-founder of FlashFX. We're, an international payments platform based in Sydney. And yeah, like we've been in operation since early 2017. Our first iteration was simply built on Ripple, the Ripple blockchain. We used IOUs to make payments to consumers, and then over time the platform developed to include payments to SME business clients, expanding various capabilities, the way our customers can connect to us via APIs. And I would say the last 1.5 to 2 years focusing more on our B2B segment, so that's specifically engaging with bank financial institutions or non-bank financial institutions that connect into us via either RippleNet or directly with our APIs, where we almost act as a as a gateway, as a correspondent bank, either for payments from overseas into Australia, or then in Australia, going outside, where in essence, in our B2B space, we sort of focus on your brand, our infrastructure. So the ultimate customer doesn't necessarily know that we're there facilitating payments, our payments platform, our sort of banking product, etc. And that's really resonating with a lot of our customers now, and our pipeline of customers we're engaging.
Yeah. Nicolas, how did you obviously found FlashFX, and what were you sort of doing before that? What was your background before FlashFX?
Yeah, look, I originally came from Switzerland, was working for a long time with UBS in Europe, in the States, in Asia, then was in Australia with Westpac, and sort of seen firsthand how inefficient the whole banking system is around international payments. With the emergence of blockchain and Bitcoin, started to experiment and realize there just has to be a better way, more efficient to move funds from A to B, and that's sort of where we started engage with Ripple, and we've been engaging with them for 4 or 5 years, and really building on that capability, that partnership. And then with my co-founder, also from Westpac, started FlashFX. At the time, up until now, we're sort of completely self-funded and just building our capabilities, working with our customers, trying to find our specific niche product, niche markets, the customers that we can engage, that are really interested in what and how we do international domestic payments.
And maybe just for the viewers' sake, would you mind sort of talking about how banks sort of operate at the moment with their sort of international payment system? I believe it's the SWIFT payment system, which is obviously, quite old. Would you mind sort of talking a little bit about, the SWIFT payment system, maybe a little bit of history there, and then sort of how you, noticed a bit of a hole in the market, how you guys plan to sort of fix that?
Yeah, look, the SWIFT network has been around for a long time, 20, 30 years, and hasn't seen much sort of improvement or innovation in that space. Like now, if someone walks into a branch, makes a payment, like even a larger payment domestically or international, you just got a piece of paper. You have no ability to know where the money has been sent, where is it, through how many hands is it actually going before it actually arrives. Then you have your bank here in Australia, banks overseas, anyone sort of wants to take a transaction fee. So it's all about stopping the money, keeping it for overnight, get some interest, and it just it's great for the banks, but from a consumer point of view, these days, like if it's quicker to jump on a plane almost to deliver funds, or like you can use your credit card, you can use all sorts of payment systems that are digital. Why hasn't sort of the international payment space not evolved quicker, and pretty much the banks sort of stopped or had little interest in innovating alongside what the society has done. And that sort of, equally how the product is delivered to a customer, customer service, the interfaces, banks have, yes, it has improved in the front and it looks all great, etc. But the back end is still, hasn't really, especially in Australia, hasn't really changed much, and it's still quite archaic. And that's sort of where we wanted to, from a FlashFX point of view, kind of really put technology at the core of what we do, and everything has to be, automated, etc. That's sort of now, like, I would say 99% of our platform is literally automated. So we only have, very little touch points on what we do, and that's really, for us, has meant we can keep our costs down. We don't need to, have an army of operational people, everything. We just have, make sure from the outside everything works, we're compliant, we're fast, we can reduce transaction costs and fees, etc. And that was important for us to make that change. It's not necessarily always visible to the end customer, but it makes huge difference for us.
And so with the Swift payment system, obviously, yeah, it's quite archaic and it's been around for quite a while. How does the FlashFX sort of payment system differ from the Swift payment system?
Yeah, look, we, as I originally said, like, we started off with the Ripple product that we've built ourselves, using ROUs to move it on the Ripple network. And the difficulty at the moment, or in the early days, is you need to have someone in Australia, can be us, but then you need to connect to someone overseas, and that sort of network effect has been missing. So we couldn't necessarily do all the currencies or all the destinations. So yes, we have to a certain degree use the traditional ways and Swift network where we have to, but our aim is kind of to eliminate, to reduce as much as possible, to use the Ripple, Ripple net with all the institutions that are on Ripple nets. We want to leverage XRP where possible. Like the way, most of your viewers kind of look at, oh, XRP is used, great, I want to invest in it. Whereas for us, it's kind of the price of XRP is almost, not really the driving part. It's more how is it used. It's an utility. For us, it's we're looking at the highway as opposed to, the price or what it does in terms of a pricing of XRP. Also, from an operational point of view, a lot of the banks or payments provider have to pre-fund their accounts at the destination. You keep balances on either side, and you net off payments. So you make it look like it's fast, but it's actually not. Whereas, with what we're trying to do with Ripple is really, again, use the digital asset where we receive funds in Australia from a consumer. We convert it, use XRP to send the destination. It's converted back into the destination currency. So the funds actually travel through the network, quite fast, can get there in 1 or 2 minutes. And then the distribution at the end is really, sort of dependent on how fast the destination payment system is. So like if it's in the UK, for example, then it's great. We have entity in Australia, we have faster payments in UK. Theoretically, a payment should be able to be distributed in, something like 5-10 minutes. That's really where we focused on, as opposed to kind of, oh no, I need to have certain liquidity at the destination so I can make the payment, etc. So it's a bit of a conundrum where we have to have both to really make it viable, with the aim to move, more on making the whole, move money from A to B, really viable for the long term, and working by, currency and by destination. If someone says, oh, great, you have, US dollars, can you send US dollars to, Singapore? No, not necessarily, because, US dollars work, great if you send it to the US, but not maybe Singapore, because it's, like in Singapore itself, you might not have a local US dollar payments, system to move those funds. So I think it's it takes time to develop, those new pathways. And that's really, we sort of with Ripple on this pathway, and we have a number of corridors and currencies where we can do it. The next, 1 or 2 months, we're releasing 2 more corridors where we can, and I think that makes a huge difference for us in what sort of payment experience we can offer to our clients.
Yeah, fantastic. And you said so the Ripple payment system can get a payment facilitated, say from Australia to, I think you used the example of being the UK, within 1 to 2 minutes. That's obviously, quite a bit faster than the Swift payment system, which can take, maybe a minimum of 72 hours, but that's quite rare. I would suggest that it's probably somewhere in the realm of 72 hours to say, roughly 2 weeks. So to have that payment go through so fast is just, yeah, it's almost laughable, to be honest with you. What other, you mentioned you have some other entities and stuff that you're obviously, that are within your network that are, based internationally. Are there, what countries are they based in? And are there any sort of countries that you are sort of struggling to sort of find another corresponding person within your network to facilitate a payment to?
Yeah, look, like we have other, financial institutions, payments providers, platforms, aggregator that have existing payments into Australia, where we, they come on RippleNet or directly via APIs, and we do the last mile distribution into Australia, through our banking platform or banking provider. We can, make the payments. We send it, in the name of the ultimate sender, which, is a big, plus for many, like the ultimate beneficiary doesn't see that, FlashFX is involved or the sending company, but they see, my mom from the UK or from Singapore or wherever actually made the payment to me. So that's sort of the power of the infrastructure that we have. Yeah, so in terms of where we connect to, look, we have discussions, we have partners and discussions in Europe. We have people in Asia, Southeast Asia. We're having discussions with people with institutions in South America. So it's sort of broadening the space. It's equally where we have a demand to make payments to. I think it always works better if you have also payments or demands going in the same direction. We wouldn't necessarily touch, sort of say payments to Africa, for example, unless, sort of South Africa or sort of the Middle East to a certain degree. So we're just focusing on building our network, leveraging, those entities that want to work with us and have payments needs into Australia or can help us to facilitate our payments into, Singapore, Hong Kong, wherever it might be, Europe and the US. That's really where we, spending most of our time on.
And so you mentioned that you probably wouldn't send funds to, South Africa or Africa in general. Is there any sort of main reason as to why you guys wouldn't do that? Is there just no one there that you can sort of have on the other end to facilitate the payment within your network, or?
Look, maybe like we do have clients that send money to South Africa, and that's absolutely fine. But sort of the broader African continent, we don't have much flow, which is sort of maybe our risk appetite to sort of be apply is not there necessarily to service those destinations. And as I said, like really to focus like on an efficient corridor, you want to have both ways. So in terms of send and receive, where it can sort of be beneficial for both partners, and that's where we see most benefit for us and the other institution.
Yeah. And so, obviously Ripple and XRP have, made headlines recently as well, more towards obviously the end of last year and the start of this year with the, the trouble they've sort of had with the SEC in the US. Has that sort of affected you guys at all in terms of, your clients sort of maybe losing a bit of confidence or anything like that? Or has it not really affected you guys at all?
Look, yes, we have certain discussions with some partners. I think it's more a problem for partners in the US that sort of have to be careful what's happening there. I mean, if we sort of look more broadly around, regulators around the world, many of whom have said that XRP is not a security, it's more a digital asset. So I think that case in the US with the SEC is a bit of an outlier, and I think it will be resolved one way or another. Given in the US you have FinCEN, who's sort of the Austrian equivalent to not exactly sure what they said or definition, but in essence more towards saying no, XRP or Ripple is not a security, whereas SEC then taken a slightly different view. Equally, how it's all happened just before the change of the change of guard with the SEC. I think most people there have left, and there's new people coming in. So it's all a bit I guess unfortunate, for Ripple itself, but I think it will work itself out. When for those listeners who are close enough in understanding Ripple and what they do, they've always been most vocal, most collaborative, working with a number of regulators globally. So for them, try to sort of get more clarity around legislation, support, etc. So I think it is sort of unfortunate, but I think as part of an evolution in accepting that blockchain as a whole more broadly, is going through certain steps. Sometimes you have 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I think that's probably 1 step back, but ultimately it will get to a solution and a more common sense on that's sort of where the market is going, where the demand is, and an evolution of that product or method.
Yeah, I totally agree. I see it more of as a bit of a short-term roadblock more than anything really. Speaking about regulation, you mentioned a bit earlier that FlashFX is kind of like a bank within Australia. How has that sort of been to sort of set up? Obviously, there's a lot of regulations involved when you're doing something like that, when you're setting up a bank here. What have been your major hurdles, I guess, trying to set up FlashFX in Australia?
Yeah, look, I mean, we are not a bank. We're sort of more act as a correspondent bank. I think there's a big difference. I think a few people would have some stern words with us if we say we're a bank. It's more a service, much like a gateway that we can offer. Look, we had almost, I think, a good relationship with ASIC in terms of going through the process of getting a financial services license, taking them through, we had in-depth discussion with them in terms of what we use. We even had Ripple as part of the, sort of approval process as such, because at that point in, sort of 2016, when we got our license, it was all quite new. So they sort of need to understand, how does it work, what are you doing, etc. Look, I think it was positive, like ultimately we have a similar license to, like any payments provider in that space. Equally working with Austrac, like we're, what do you call an international remittance dealer. We report all our, transfers, etc. So it's a standard process. Yes, there was some extra scrutiny, but I think, it's as expected, and we had no issues as such. Just sort of explaining really what we're going to do, and yes, over time that has evolved and improved, and we'll continue to do so.
Yeah. Sorry, my mistake. I didn't realize there was much of a difference between a corresponding bank and an actual bank. So thank you for clearing that up. Look, you mentioned, so you got your license in 2016, and then obviously you've dealt with ASIC and all the sort of regulatory bodies here in Australia, obviously since then. Who's your sort of main target market? Do you guys sort of focus on individuals, or are you looking more for businesses? Where are you guys sort of focusing most of your time?
Yeah, so so we have sort of 2 major segments. B2C, which is mainly people that come through our website and use our app. That can be a day-to-day consumer paying paying funds back to the family, or someone from immigrated from overseas needing to bring funds back, someone who has super somewhere in the UK, or having to pay bills overseas. So that's going more into business, someone paying invoices to suppliers overseas. Much like other sort of payment companies in this space. That's sort of where we started, where the product is up and running. But more demand where we see is in our B2B space, which we define as any bank and non-bank financial solutions here in Australia or overseas, and they mainly connect with us via APIs or over internet. So they wouldn't use the interface that most people would have. It's just everything is done all electronically. We talk thousands of payments, etc. that just go through, and the infrastructure is used. Their customers wouldn't see that we even in between facilitating on helping that entity in making those payments. And that's sort of the B2B space is sort of where we have our majority of our business, and we see continued growth there.
And have you guys noticed much, like, did COVID affect you guys at all? Was that like, a facilitator to, ramping up business, or did business sort of slow down during COVID? What sort of happened there?
Look, yes, it certainly slowed, in our B2C space with consumers and business, less trade, less travel, everyone sort of more, sort of scaling back a bit. But funny enough, we sort of had other segments, other customers of our more business or institutional type customers who, they kept going. They still needed to do certain things. So that was sort of almost a switch, last year where, we sort of the B2B space really overtaken, our focus and the value that we create in FlashFX internally, having more and more of those B2B customers coming to us, integrating, going live, pushing volume through, and that's sort of been, it's been obviously tough for everyone, but we haven't seen much of a dent in our business.
That's good to hear. Look, what sort of do you guys have planned for the future? What does your sort of like product roadmap look like moving forward?
Yeah, look, we started with a new banking partner a few months ago, and we issue, we can offer, bank accounts, unique bank accounts to our customers in their own name, domestically and overseas. And I think we see continued growth and demands, to sort of, specifically in the B2B space, to offer our partners, sort of virtual account numbers for their clients, where, again, they don't see necessarily we're there, but we're sort of offering that sort of facility to make payments, to do more collection in Australia, and ultimately connect a number of our partners that we have. The pipeline is of prospects and people that we have commercial agreement. We're all sort of waiting to slot them into our integration pipeline and enable that. That's really where our focus is. The product in itself, yes, we have certain integration that will go live soon on Ripple. New corridors we're going to release, and then obviously that will help across the business with B2C customers who kind of see, look, certain corridors are now a lot faster, a lot better than before. So it sort of is a win-win on both segments.
Guys, I hope you're enjoying the episode. If you could do me a massive favor and like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and follow me on all social media, so Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. That would be awesome. Thank you so much. Obviously, your network's growing then. Have you sort of seen, a bit of, what's the word? Have you seen, more like open conversations with banks, obviously domestically and overseas, to try and sort of integrate this sort of technology?
Yeah, look, a number of our partners do have, we have very open discussions. Sort of this, first year, the major banks, obviously they don't like what's happening, like what we do, how we do stuff, etc. We cannot even have a conversation with them. So most, discussions we have and people that support us wouldn't be, domestic banks in Australia. And, those overseas, look, we hear of partners saying, look, they don't want to deal with, one of the major banks for, issues that previously been in the news, or, the way they operate, the way, integration works. Working with us is, seamless, is easy to integrate. We had previously had a party in Australia that pretty much integrated in a test environment within 3 days on a weekend doing a hackathon. And that sort of, that shows, how easy, like once you have a plan in terms of how to execute, it doesn't take 3 to 6 months to finish an integration. And, I think that's sort of what people look for that sort of efficiency, not just in the payments and how, stuff is done, but also how people can interact with us. I think that's sort of really the benefit that we hear from other prospects and clients. Yeah.
And so I guess like one of the major hurdles must sort of be that, like you sort of mentioned, a lot of the banks don't really want to speak to you guys or sort of change the way they do things. They sort of seem to dig their heels in quite a lot when, something new comes about. And I guess it's almost kind of sort of shunned a little bit, which is, could be quite difficult from your end. How have you guys sort of dealt with issues like that? I mean, obviously your network and stuff is growing and people are sort of, changing their tune a little bit, having more open conversations. But how has that sort of affected growth, I guess, of FlashFX over the past, say, 4 years?
Oh, look, I think it's been hugely difficult for the business to, not having that support. Like, we do everything, correct, want to do correct, reports, suspicious transactions, do our KYC, do our ML, without, any legal activity as we can. But, like if literally every bank in Australia is our, your money remittance business, you do on Ripple, we don't like cryptocurrencies, you're Australia registered, we don't even want to talk to you. So, I think that's been difficult to sort of, for us to have a critical mass that we now have. It's sort of always a chicken and egg. In terms of development was maybe a lot slower than we could have been if we had, the ability to kind of say, look, just because you're bigger or you have certain capabilities doesn't necessarily mean, with the number of stuff been in the news the last 12, 18 months, it's kind of look, like you're not necessarily doing any better. I can see from a bank's point of view, and having been as part of that discussion then as well, like, they say, look, how can we, if we can't even, be sure that we inside the bank doing everything correct, how can we rely on someone else outside of the bank, outside of our control, also trying to do the same thing? So I can see sort of both sides, but, like there's certain banks where we try to, connect, to open up an account. And, within a day, we get a phone call saying, oh, sorry, we just realized you're, doing something that we don't like. We close your account next day, please don't make any payments. So, there's obviously a number of businesses in Australia that sort of had similar experiences. And I think, given where we are now and the banking support we have, we could sort of help. We are helping certain business types that come to us and say, look, we can help you with your business to, that you can continue what you're doing. We're providing you, access to our infrastructure so you can operate independently, even though, on the face of it, a consumer would think, oh, but aren't you in competition with X, Y, and Z? It's kind of, it doesn't matter. It's kind of, for us is we want, we want flow, we want transactions. We want to, have an equal playing field.
Yeah, I think it's quite funny. You mentioned obviously in the news over the, say, last 12 to 18 months, there's definitely been a few banks that have sort of made headlines for all the wrong reasons. Definitely one here in Australia, obviously I won't mention it, but, they were fined $1.3 billion for, doing the wrong thing, which is obviously quite ironic, them trying to sort of throw a little bit of shade on the sort of crypto industry in general. I find relatively ironic, at least from a personal point of view, especially when they're not obviously doing the right thing anyway. What do you guys sort of have planned for the future? You mentioned earlier that you're sort of seeking to raise some capital through institutional and retail investors. Can you talk to me a little bit about that process and I guess what you guys are hoping to achieve through that?
Yeah, sure. Look, we so far to date we've only raised capital internally. We have no external investors other than really the founders. We've been engaging with a number of institutional investors, and sort of getting to certain size for us that we do have a really strong pipeline of B2B customers. And so we decided to go and raise funds now with Equitize. That will go live after Easter. So some of the viewers who might have seen on the various channels, we are now open to for investors that are interested to register their interest. And we're working on finalizing the offer document that will go live after Easter for 2 weeks, and then we sort of have a public sale. And at the same time, we sort of go back to those institutional investors to raise, like we're looking to raise around $3 million, just to continue building the team, building the product. Like everyone hands on deck. We have so many integrations that we are currently trying to accommodate, and that's where we need more help. We have great partners now with Ripple and others that help us with business development, but equally sort of that there's tons of stuff that we can do, and the number of transactions, the deals that are being shown to us is phenomenal, and we want to be able to capture that opportunity, and that sort of we need that capital to grow, and the platform is there. As I said, it's when we worked on the offer document, and I thought, look, I think it's 90% automated, and our CTO said, no, you don't realize that it's 99% automated. And I think that's good sort of the vote of confidence, kind of like you sort of, I'm Swiss, I want to kind of be more cautious in what I'm saying. It's kind of no, it's 99%, everything is automated. Deposits coming in, automatically processed 24/7. If someone wants to do a transfer, during opening hours, where we can do it in the market during the week, everything is automated. All we have to do in the background is really on the compliance side, making sure everything is correct. That's really all there is to do. And that's really what we've worked on the last few years. With the team to sort of have that infrastructure, that automation, so we can now capture and process those payments we have with us now.
And have you guys had much interest? I know you said it's not with Equitize, it's not going live until post Easter, but have you had sort of much interest, obviously before that?
Look, we haven't really engaged a lot of sort of the retail investors, but we have a number of discussions, and it's look, I haven't really raised funds before, and it just takes time to explain the business. It's changing, our business model is changing. Then people say, well, we needed more B2B customers, or we don't like this, or we don't like that, and it's kind of look, we have a vision, and we see where the demand is from the customers, and trying to find the right partners that believe in us as founders, as a team, and as a business. And I think that's increasingly we see we're on the right path. And having engaged with Equitize, and it's going out more broadly, and more people talk about, like with some of our partners or advisors, and really sort of seeing excitement coming, what we do, how we do stuff, how the market perceives us. And I think that's a great validation for us that we are on the right path.
Yeah, definitely. And so you mentioned you're looking to raise around about $3 million. Where is that fund? Where are those funds sort of going to go? You mentioned that you might be expanding the team, and then also just, pushing out the product and upgrading the product a little bit. Is that sort of where you guys plan on spending the funds?
Yeah, look, it's the team. Some technology investments we sort of need to do. As well around the compliance side. I think there's always stuff we need to do. Then obviously with increased volumes, we have regulatory capital that we need to enhance. In terms of marketing, I think in the B2B space, it's sort of less really needed. Because we have so many integrations sort of happening. But from a pure consumer point of view, like most people wouldn't have seen us really active, on various channels or on Google or Facebook. Like we've done bits here and there, but really haven't sort of pushed that. And obviously we can't compete with some of the bigger partners to try to be on the same levels, but kind of have a bit of better organized reach to some of our consumer and business prospects and customers to think, look, hey, we're Australian business, we do something differently than a bank or more older payments provider in the market, and that sort of we need to reach those customers with some of the very specific demographics. Like there's lots of payments provider. Obviously in Australia, you see it anywhere in the suburbs, etc. They sort of have a specific focus on one group, one corridor, and funny enough, like we might not want to go into those demographics because inadvertently, like we might already do those payments, because we bank or we help those customers or those smaller businesses already, and people don't even know. So sort of just have to try to be carefully. Like we don't want to create competition with our existing customers, but broadly speaking, for the majority of the payments in sort of the G10 space, to Europe, to the US, into Asia, I think it's an open playing field, and people look for different ways, different values, and hopefully they at some point can see FlashFX and what we have to offer.
Yeah, perfect. Look, Nicolas, we'll probably sort of start wrapping this up. Have you got any closing thoughts or anything else you'd like to sort of let the viewers know about?
Yeah, look, have a look into equitize, register interests. There's an offer document. There's more information available. Have a look at the FlashFX website. I think we're really keen to get a broader base of people as customers or investors that support us, believe in the path where we are on sort of in that blockchain space. And I think we're just really excited, in being able to have this discussion, with yourself, with your viewers on these podcasts, engaging us on live chats. And the next 12, 18 months, I think the pipeline, the future looks bright. I think for us, irrespective, how much we raise and where we're going, and I think that's a good place to be, given what's been happening since COVID. When we look overseas, what's happening, I think we're in a happy place in Australia.
Yeah, most definitely. I totally agree. Look, Nicolas, thank you so much for your time. It's been really interesting chatting with you, and yeah, I appreciate you jumping on.
No worries. Thank you.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the episode. If you could do me a massive favor and like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and follow me on all social media. So Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. That would be awesome. Thank you so much.